Welcome back to the Maker Stage. My name is Jenny Xie, and I'm on Figma's Story Studio team. I'm so excited to introduce our next speaker, Rory Flynn. Rory is about to show us how to master 3 core skills that will help unlock the full power of Figma Weave to generate amazing creative assets. These are scalable, automated, multi-tool workflows that will completely change your creative ops. Please join me in welcoming Rory to the stage.
Config, how are we doing today? Good? Good. First, I just want to thank the Figma and the Weave team for having me here today. It is so incredible to be on the stage, just an honor, and just wanted to give you all, a quick glimpse into what we're going to be doing with some of the tools today. But unless you've exited society, you know that AI is dominating the news cycle, it's dominating your social feed, it's basically everywhere. What's everyone saying? Saying the future is generative, which is true, but if the future is generative, that means you're dead, right? Not literally, but literally everything you do is dead. I'm sure you've all seen the headlines, Hollywood, PowerPoint, Figma, graphic design, all dead, right? At least that's what the talking heads are going to tell you. But apparently, if you're dead, I'm dead. Everything we know and love is dead. We're all cooked, but the future's amazing, right? It's kind of confusing. But I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. So first, a little bit about me. My name is Rory Flynn. I am the founder of Systematic AI, a company you've probably never heard of. But what exactly do we do? Essentially, we're like an operational AI agency, meaning we look into people's businesses, we find holes, and then we plug those holes with conventional AI tools. And we've partnered with some of the biggest brands in the industry, not just to use AI, but to use it at scale, to use it in big places and do just, maybe some ridiculous things with it. But it's enough about me. Who are you? You a designer, you a marketer, you're an entrepreneur, and you're probably using AI in some way, shape, or form. But if I'm being honest, it's a pretty cool time for us right now. If you told me last year that essentially I could build an entire typography package, complete with design math, like generating OTF files and vector files with just 2 images and an idea, I would say yeah, whatever, okay, sure. But that's the reality that we're living in now. I can go into, basically drop in a sans serif template of a font, give it an image of fiddleheads, drop that into ChatGPT, say, all right, let's go create something. Right, I can take that further, ask for uppercase, lowercase, ligatures, special characters, dump that into something like Claude Code, say slice it up and give me all the files, and bang, we have a font developed in less than 30 minutes, which, again, crazy. Is it 100% accurate? No. A detailed eye will find something wrong with this every single time. But the fact that I can just ask for this now, and this can be done in 30 minutes, and then I can play with it, right? It's just crazy. It still blows my mind. Right, so now for the bad part, right? All that capability that we have now, it also leads to a lot of new problems. So as soon as you learn something new, right, something changes, or we get a new tool. So in addition to your current workload that you always have to do every day, now you have to keep up with the pace of the technology. You get new tools that are popping up, constant progress, all the updates, and just this pressure to keep up. And because of all that progress, now anyone with $20 and a couple tools can create AI assets that are essentially high quality, they're indistinguishable from reality, they're super creative. And yes, the truth is everyone can do this now. They can create cool things, but they do it in a vacuum, right? The real question is, can they do it at scale? Because again, why would we need to do this stuff at scale? It's because of a little environment or a little situation that we've created, and I like to call it creative inflation. It's this never-ending need for new creative. We have to do this stuff for multiple channels and multiple formats, all the variants, right? All this demand leads to a lot of creative fatigue. So we have to start to build systems to keep up with that and to actually keep up with the system that we created, right? So we need to adapt, right? So here's what we know. We need more creative at a faster pace, at a higher quality, with more control. But where it gets complicated is what tools do we use? How do we combine them? And then how do we start to build scalable systems and not get frustrated in the process, right? Let's solve this problem, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. So next 20 minutes, hopefully we're going to go over 3 core skills that you can use for any AI tool, how we can build these multiple tool AI workflows, some simple and practical applications of what that looks like in real life. And then hopefully when we're done for this, you can understand a little bit more about nodes, how to concept these workflows, and how to build something tomorrow, right? So how do we get there? Really, if you want to start building these systems with AI, you don't need to know every tool. You just need to know that AI is only like 3 things, and you can figure this stuff out. It's context, what you provide it. It's direction, it's how you brief it. And then it's iteration, what you do and iterate once you get something back, right? So when you know that, you can start to build workflows. You know, now that we've been graced with Figma Weave here, we can start to build that, right? If you're not familiar with the tool and never used it, essentially it's a node-based workflow builder. You have access to 300 AI, 300 plus AI tools in one workspace. It's really scalable and seemingly limitless. But if you're not used to this and you're not used to working in nodes, essentially node is just like an action or a thing that holds information or a generation, right? You can string all these things together, and instead of prompting in like an interface, you do it on an infinite canvas where one gen or one idea feeds the next one. And when they get chained together, you can start to produce these workflows, right? So the difference is how it used to look is maybe if you wanted to go create a video or an asset or something, you might go to Claude and be like, this is the prompt I'm trying to create. And then you copy that, and you go to another tool, and then you go generate an image. And then you download that image and go to another tool to generate a video. Now, what it looks like now is we can do that same process laid out on an infinite canvas and go from one thing to the next, the same exact way, but also we can use this again. It's the same process, right? So again, to keep up with this demand that we've created, now we have to start thinking in systems, right? And nodes and workflows are sort of our way of doing that. That's how we go from making one thing to making thousands of things and having something that we can always reuse. So good news is you already know how nodes work if you've never used them before, because they're familiar to you, right? You're not used to prompt and pray. That's not something that, again, I was ever used to. You're used to building things in steps, piece by piece, right? Quality control at every step of the way. Like here, if I wasn't gonna just go from that first starting image to these last images, I wanna create the body of the car. I wanna apply the design to the car. I wanna then take multiple angles of the car. Then I wanna use that as a reference image to create all different variations of that car in real life circumstances. So, this also means you can start to package this stuff together. And once you have workflows that are pretty much standardized, you don't have to change much. You only have to change the input. So this entire system stays exactly the same. So instead of a Kodak Lancia, maybe I want a Polaroid F40. All I'm doing is changing the input, system takes over, it runs, I get new output, right? And when these workflows are built, scalable, and structured appropriately, 95% of the time they don't have to change. So again, it's not that hard to get there. You already have experience, you already do this. You've already built design systems. We're just doing it in a little bit of a different function now. So again, how can you do this, right? Let's get into this a little bit. First, just gonna lay out these core 3 skills that I think can be used for any tool in any medium at any time. Now, one is deconstruction. It's probably my favorite one here. It's basically reverse engineering. It's how do we take a piece of media, break it down into its core components, and that will teach us how to prompt. It will also teach us how to write formulas, which leads us to skill number 2, which is system prompts. Basically, when we tell the LLMs how to do the thing that we were just doing in deconstruction, right? So they will also be able to guide LLMs to just pass information from one piece of the tool to the next. And then workflow dev basically is how do I get from point A to point B, and what sequence of tools do I need to structure to get there? So start with deconstruction here. Essentially, what is deconstruction? It is, to me, like I said, the most important process, because if we can deconstruct something, we can start to reveal patterns, and it'll show us how to build formulas and templates so we always know what and how to prompt anything, right? Now, again, let's start with basic text to image stuff. This is like the holy grail. You put in text, you get out an image, right? So let's say we wanted to create a photo asset, right? To take the concept of what is a photo and break it down into its core components so that we can control every piece of it. So if you were to break down an image, like what is a photo? These are the core components, right? All of these go together to make up an image, right? I call these like the non-negotiables. They'll be represented in just about every photo ever taken. So without them, you don't really have an image. Lighting is going to be represented in every photo no matter what. And when you're prompting, if you don't add something like lighting, the model will provide it for you. So if we can control these, we can really control everything. So when you think about them like little visual building blocks, you can stack them together, and this becomes a prompt formula that either you can fill in or a machine can fill in, right? And all that comes together, and we see it's just sort of like a random collection of words here, no rhyme or reason to it, but they all have a little weight to them, so that when we run it, we get an image and exactly what we're looking for. It's covering each piece of these non-negotiables, and you don't have to go really crazy because you're doing the things that are most important to create an image. Now, again, we can do text to image, but let's turn an image into another image. For this, we can use these image-to-image models, or what they're called now, these edit models. But if we're going to do that, we can use that deconstruction process again. Like, what is editing? Essentially, if we think about it that way, editing is keep this, change that. Doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. It can be this simple, right? So the idea here is if I'm going to create a prompt formula for something like that, we do keep, semicolon, things I want to keep, change, semicolon, things I want to change. So, if we write that out, like keep this exact product visible, preserve the fine details, and change to whatever that might be, right? Whatever your idea is. So here, in its simplest form, what did we want to keep? We wanted to keep the bottle. What do we want to do? We want to change the background. So that's as simple as it can be. And now that we have a prompt formula, that keep change little structure there, that doesn't have to be for one image, that can be for 1,000 images, right? That little system function will be able to feed the rest of what we're doing. So that leads us to skill number 2, which is building system prompts, right? This is where the LLMs do a lot of this process for us, and we can start to exit some of the systems. So if you're not familiar with system prompts, essentially there are specific rules that govern the LLM. You write it once, the model follows it, takes you out of the loop, and they're really good for node-based tools because they can pass information manually without being updated. So we look at it, and the system prompt is basically just a brief for the LLM. You're telling it who it's acting as, what it's going to receive, what it's going to do with what it receives, how it should output, and then maybe some things of what not to do, right? And this is an example of a system prompt using that keep change structure, where basically I'm saying you're going to get from me an image and an idea, take that, apply the prompt formula to it, write the prompt, and then send it to the image generators to go get produced. So what that looks like visually here is you see I just upload an image, I give it my idea, the system prompt says, oh, I know what you're trying to do, you want to write a prompt for this thing. Sends it to the LLM, which will write the prompt for us, ports it automatically over to these image generators to go produce. I click it once, I can now use this tool over and over and over again, different image, different input, right? So that leads us to core skill 3, which is workflow development. It's like how we string these things together. So let's build a quick tool. This is a tool that we use for a lot of different workflows. It's just one little piece of the entire machine. But here, you'll see we can drop in an image of our athletic greens. We'll add a text node here, which will be our idea. We'll add another text node here, which will be our system prompt or our design system. We're going to connect run any LLM. In this case, you can select any LLM model you want. And we'll attach everything to this node, and then we'll hit generate, so it'll generate our prompt. And it's going to generate our prompt the same way every time, because that's what our rules say. We'll drop in our image generators here, so we connect that prompt to the image generator. What I just added up top is called a router. Just takes one input and sends it to multiple outputs. So once we attach everything, we hit go, and now we have this little automatic prompting image generator based on our rules that we can use every time. And now we can use this as a piece in another workflow, right? So this is how we can start to build these scalable workflows. Now, if we wanted to scale it, not a lot of things have to change, right? We just generated one asset. How do we generate more than one? So same structure here. We're only going to make a few changes. The system prompt section, instead of saying, can you write one prompt for me? Let's just say write 4, right? That'll write 4 prompts for you now. And then we add this thing called the text iterator, which will split those 4 prompts into individual inputs that gets sent to the image generator node, and all 4 will generate at once. So it's going to be 1 output, this could be 4, this could be 400, whatever you want, right? And that piece allows us to have one now little tool that we can use, and that can be part of a workflow, that can be the only thing you use. It's very malleable, right? So how do we use this practically? So think one of the things that we often look at is you try to solve way too big of problems when the small problems are right in front of us, right? And this is some of the stuff that I want to show of like what we've done with our clients in real life. So BarkBox, if you're not familiar with them, they sell dog toys and dog treats in a monthly subscription, but they, they're 100% e-com. They have a ton of assets that they need to create all the time, right? So really, one of the problems that we notice with them is that we have to do these composite photos, and we have to do them every month across multiple partnerships, and the monthly subscription changes all the time. So this one little piece becomes a big problem, because just getting all that stuff together, shooting it in a studio, getting the assets produced, so on and so forth, takes a lot of time. So what we've used here is Weave to basically just composite the boxes digitally and then add the lighting, depth, and shadows to give it the 3D feel, right? And that becomes a feeder image for everything else we're doing. Now, when we look at it, how we want to construct it is those inputs will always change. It'll always be different treats, it'll always be different toys, and then we still manually composite everything with a compositor node within Weave. We'll flatten it, and then we'll regenerate it with the lighting, depth, and shadow to give it the 3D feel, right? So the workflow itself looks like this, where those inputs on the other side, every single one of them, those can just be updated to just upload your image and go from there. The compositor, we can still drag things around manually, control it the way you want to, and then it's all run by one system prompt that basically says, take this flat image, add the lighting, depth, and shadow, and give it some dimension. So we can then take that reference image and go create whatever we need. If we need stuff for banner ads, if we need stuff that looks like UGC, if we need stuff that looks like, something just goofy that we want to do for social, that one image feeds everything else. So solving that one problem really helps, right? The other thing that we do is we have these sales presentations, right? To pitch for new partners. A lot of this business is done on licensing models. So we always need to have these new pitches going out to win business, right? Now, the problem we face here, not necessarily a problem, but sort of like the way you see it, is the designers, typically they design all the toy concepts in 2D vector. So our sort of thinking is how do we get from 2D vector to 3D mockup to studio shots to get into these presentations to win business, right? Now, we start to structure a workflow that looks like this, where it's essentially run by 4 system prompts, and that's it. We have a system prompt that takes it from a 2D vector to a 3D image. We take that 3D image, then it feeds into our batch generator that we just made before, which then will give us 9 different angles of that. Built-in seam logic, built-in texture and mapping, everything like that, so it all stays consistent. That feeds into what we call a scale ref. We're going to do that in the next slide. I'll tell you why that's important, which then feeds into the same batch generator that we just produced before that creates all of our studio shots, right? 4 clicks, and we're here. So the reason is we have to build this sort of like scale modular here. It's because we have a lot of failure. A lot of times there's no context for how big something is. So we have to feed really the details to give it an understanding of how big the toy is against the dogs, right? Because if not, everything starts to get unproportional. So here, you see it's basically all we're doing is giving the size of the toy against the size of the dogs. It creates this reference image. This reference image becomes our new feeder image to create the assets that we need. So again, now I can exit this workflow. Now I can hand this off to someone else. Any 2D vector image can go in, and studio shots can come out. I've replaced myself, we can go work on the next problem, right? That's a workflow, that's scalable, that's how you use it for multiple people and not just myself. But how does this start to look at scale? That's one problem, how do we do something that's a little bit bigger? One of our clients, Shark Ninja, some have a massive footprint, hundreds of products, 25 product categories, 35 global markets. They do 25 new products a year, so they just have a lot of content to produce, right? And one problem that they love to talk about is localization. Just have things that look good in the US don't look good in Germany. They have 1,000 products to do this for all the time, right? So this is where everything started. We started localizing assets, and before you know it, these tools that we've built, some of these workflows, they start to bleed into other things. So that one workflow for just creating a singular asset now has started to bleed into every piece of the organization where we're doing things like retouching, we're doing environment fixes, product fixes, traditional compositing, asset depth, things like that, all little Weave workflows that everyone uses now. And it's not just limited to images, we can now do video, we can localize video, we can do a little bit of traditional product replacement, seasonalize stuff, even get more so into the hybrid space here, where I think is like the next step, where we use AI, 3D, VFX all together, taking traditionally long processes, adding speed while keeping our precision and control. That's really kind of what we've been waiting for. And it's great to see this stuff in the wild. You walk through the offices, I see it on the, in boardrooms. They're incentivizing people, whoever builds stuff that can help the company overall, cash prizes every week. It's a great way to incentivize people to build stuff that's scalable for everyone. So wrapping this up, I think just a couple things to remember, like be flexible and screw the models, right? Every model I mentioned here, they're all going to change. But if you build structured systems, you can just swap tools in, right? Be scalable. Build this stuff, not just for yourself, but for everyone else. If only you can operate it, then it's not really a system, right? If it's built for everyone, then they can take it and run with it. Now, last piece is just be yourself. That's it. I mean, you're the reason you're here. You don't have to change. Just evolve a little bit, right? Like, that's why the headlines are wrong. This is why really AI is not going to replace you. Just do weird stuff. I mean, if you told me I was going to create a font with fiddleheads a couple weeks ago, I'd been like, all right, that's crazy. But again, step out of your comfort zone a little bit. You're going to find more uses than you ever thought you needed for this stuff. So appreciate you all for giving me about 20 minutes of your time. Thank you, and hopefully I'll see you soon.